We are now going to the executive session.
I'm doing that now.
Yes, if somebody else does it, if you can.
Okay, we are back into open session. All right, at this point, we have our first opportunity for public comments. The school board welcomes questions, ideas, and comments from persons in attendance. Members of the audience may comment during the public comment portion of the meeting when recognized by the board president. We ask that comments be limited to 3 minutes in order to complete the agenda within a reasonable time. We also ask that comments begin by providing your name, address, and school district in which you reside. Would anyone like to make a public comment this evening? All right. Mr. Todd.
Good evening. My name is Alan Todd. I reside at 35 Rosemont Avenue here in Webster Groves. So I am a member of your Financial Advisory Committee. I am also just finished 2 years as president of the Bristol PTO. That's not really why I want to get up here today, though. I really want to talk about my perspective as Avery's dad. So she has had an incredibly easy transition from preschool to kindergarten, and I think there's a lot of credit to go around for that, and I think it's important that we recognize that. First, I think it starts with Mr. Cinti and the work that the teachers at Bristol have done. He's done a great job sort of creating an open and welcome environment for students. And also, her teacher, Mrs. Lindsay Gray, she's incredibly warm and supportive and helpful for Avery, and I think that's really important. But I also don't want to spend any more time talking about Bristol, because that's not really, I think, the most important thing that I want you guys to hear. I think we should spend a minute just sort of recognizing the start that she got at Ambrose. You know, the Walter Ambrose Family Center set her up really well, and I think really created the ability for her to have an easy transition to kindergarten. I actually want to read just briefly, if you'll embellish me, a social media post that my wife posted when we finished our last day at Ambrose. It was amongst all of her friends, got all sorts of traffic, and I think it really captures sort of the spirit of her experience at Ambrose, and I think it's important for you guys to hear. Either yesterday or a short lifetime ago, we brought an apprehensive 2-year-old who was pretty sure she did not like school to her first day of preschool at a magical place. She leaves the school for the last time as a student today, a nearly 5-year-old with an amazing network of friends who has gained self-confidence and a love of learning. She has climbed trees, played in the mud, organized all school parties, created music videos, tended a garden, shopped for groceries, done yoga, cooked food in a 2-scale kitchen, used a sewing machine, made pottery, jumped in countless puddles, played in the forest, climbed on sculptures, exploded volcanoes, danced, drawn self-portraits, and designed items to print on a 3D printer. She has played, she has learned, she has led, she has listened. She has grown in countless ways. We are eternally grateful to the wonderful teachers she's had, including Sandy Suber, Julia Dietl, Tracy Smith, Melissa Schniedermeyer, and Joy Westermeyer, and the amazing friends we have made. Kindergarten, here we come, and see you in a year, Ambrose, we have another 2-year-old. So I just think it's important I think as a community and as a board, we hear a lot about Bristol and Edgar Road and Avery and Hickson and, you know, the high school because of the volume of students that go through those buildings and the number of people are there. And I think it's important to take a step back and remember what a gem we have in the Walter Ambrose Family Center and the work that they do, sort of preparing our students for their future endeavors. So thank you. That's all I want to share.
Thanks,
Thank
Alan.
you.
Thank you.
All right, other public comments? I'm sorry, they're sharing. All right. Celebrations from board members. Dr. Strickler, would you like to start?
Sure. As Alan said, Ambrose Center is one of our school buildings. Had the opportunity to go there first day of school and check out all the little kids going in, excited about what was happening, and parents were excited. Also at Hickson, and everybody was extremely excited about what was going on, and you can see the enthusiasm for the first day of school. I know some parents were like, I'm glad school's back in session, and some were a little apprehensive about that. But I appreciated everything that the staff did to get the buildings ready, the teachers and the custodians and the maintenance staff to prepare things. Also, the variety of events for the Eclipse were magnificent, and it's great to see our athletic teams both boys and girls in a variety of sports off and running very well.
All right, thank you. Mr. Moore.
Kind of take that segue with the sporting teams. I normally don't normally have a trouble coming up with celebrations, but one in particular I wanted to bring up was we've gotten already this year a couple of nice letters from officials that have been the people managing the competitions that some of our teams have played in. And I'm a little bit, it's a very good thing for me to remember the days that I was a high school official, when I was in college, after college. I also officiated at the college level in baseball, but baseball and softball were my two sports. But one of the things that I always felt was important was to recognize the teams that played the sports the right way, respectful of the officials and the other teams, because they weren't our enemies, they were just our competition. And it is so nice to get officials who take the time to recognize our coaches and our players for being upstanding citizens, for being good athletes, good student athletes, and respectful of the officials and the other teams. And I just think that's phenomenal. When an official will take the time to say that about some of our teams and our coaches, that's something we need to celebrate. So that was the one thing that came to the top for me today.
David?
I'll pass.
Joe?
I will just say that I was at the first day of Bristol, which was a sight to behold. But a day absolutely those kids will never forget, which I love. My personal bias, I will say boys swimming is off to a great start. They're always underappreciated team. And the Eclipse thing was amazing. And Nixon did a great job, and I saw a lot of community members that commented how great it was to have it, like a live commentary while you were there, so you could actually know what you were looking at, which I think is a great thing to offer to everybody.
All right, Ms. Diggin.
We started the open house season, and I was at the computer school open house last week, and Kristen Harms in 4th grade used a program called Orasma,
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
which is really cool. So
Yeah,
parents
that's
were
awesome.
trying to guess which body part was their kid's. So I watched a dad click on 6 different things, thinking it was his daughter's fingers. No, it was maybe her. But finally clicked on her feet, and it was then go to a video about her essay on what's her best body part. And it was just really cool because it got the parents very engaged, gave the chance for these students to use 2 different technologies, making the video and then tying it to your Erasmus. I thought it was very cool. And I loved it on her wall in 4th grade. It's collaborate, with the O being the clock. It looks really good. I did get a peek at the auditorium, which is looking beautiful. And I bought my tickets for September 9th, the movie Visions of Future. And I hope everyone gets a chance to do that. It'll be fun. And I want to welcome Joe, and looking forward to having he and Trinity sit in on all of our board meetings.
All right, Joe, do you have anything you'd like to share in terms of celebrations from the start of the year?
Yeah, well, as mentioned, the Eclipse went great. We had a wonderful setup out on the baseball field, and playing songs like "Total Eclipse of the Heart," Heart, and "Here Comes the Sun," and lots of fun music like that. Sun chips, cosmic brownies. It was really a great time. The production for both of our fall plays begins this week. We are actually doing 2 fall plays, which is the first time we're doing that in over 15 years, so that's exciting. One in the brand new auditorium and one in our brand new black box theater, which was just built last summer. And yeah, our sports are doing great. Football is 2-0, softball is 2-0, girls tennis and swimming off to good starts.
All right, thank you.
I just want to acknowledge and recognize the amount of personal time that our teachers put into their classrooms. Although their official work day back, they were in the classroom way before then, and they were actually working very hard. I even saw Honor working hard one day. But
You got recruited, huh?
I did visit a couple of schools, and prior to their official start day, and they were in there working, cleaning their classrooms, getting it ready, and I think they were just glad to be there. But I did know that there was their personal time, and some of them spend their personal resources to get their classrooms together, and that needs to be acknowledged. And we have some very, very dutiful and caring teachers.
I'll just add, you guys really covered everything I had to say, but I did watch the eclipse at Clark, and it was so much fun. And I'm proud of our district. A lot of school districts, I'm sure you read, either didn't have school or they had school and kept kids inside because they were fearful that kids were going to get hurt or they were going to get sued or something terrible would happen. And I love that we so thoroughly embraced that opportunity to learn from that incredible event. So, and I really also appreciated how all of the schools invited the parents and not just lip service. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I heard parents, please come. Like they really wanted us there and made us feel welcome. And so it was a memorable experience. And I think Webster did a great job with it. Were you going to specifically mention the softball team because I think they deserve it?
I was not.
So Steve made a reference to, and maybe you've seen more letters than I have, but we got a really lengthy, just raving letter about the girls softball team from an official, and went on and on and on about how he will think highly of Webster Groves for the rest of his life because of the sportsmanship demonstrated by our players and our coach. And I thought it was worth specifically coaches, and I thought it was worth specifically mentioning that it was the softball team because it was a very, very it was a long, thoughtful letter. So.
Yeah.
All right, that's all.
Kathy, you got any?
I guess it's done.
Okay, I'm saving mine for my opening of school. It's kind of a celebration too.
Okay. Board calendar. This is just we don't have a board calendar.
Yeah, if you click,
Click on the agenda side, it'll open it up on the right side, and then you can scroll down and see the dates.
This is just on here so that we all take note of what is coming up and make sure that we check our calendars. Okay, so August 30th is the high school open house, and the 31st is Hickson. September 3rd is a board community engagement at Bread Company. And Joe, you are welcome to attend those if you both Joes. But I have to.
That's right. She wasn't the last one with me.
Both Joes are welcome to attend those. Do you know what they are?
No, not really.
Okay, so we have started having just an informal 2 or 3 hour block at Breadco and Old Webster where 3 or fewer, 2 or 3 board members are there. Just set up a table, there's a little sign, and anybody who wants to stop and talk to us about school, ask questions, we're just available. So you are always welcome to attend those. For September 3rd,
It's a Sunday of Labor Day weekend.
Sunday of Labor Day weekend.
Right.
I will be in Chicago. Is anybody in town that
I will be in California. So.
Okay.
Which one are you looking at?
This Sunday.
September
I can do
3rd.
this Sunday.
I probably can.
Yeah, I'm Bill.
All right, so I've got an Emerson and a Jean. Correct?
No
And
more
maybe
than
a
one
Joe.
more, if anybody
And
else.
Joe, if you want to, don't
I
really
think I can make
if you're
it,
in
yeah.
town. Okay.
It starts at 12:30 at Breadco and Webster.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's covered. And then meet the superintendent September 6th.
Yes, so what we decided to do is, what we did last time is we kind of had met at different locations and then tried to serve as the main draw for that location. Now we're just going to go to high populated places. So we picked Einstein's at breakfast, so we'll set up a couple tables, so we'll get to see a lot of people. Some people hopefully will come for that reason, but we'll also get a lot of traffic. And then also going to meet in October at Lucky's during lunchtime. They've got that little social type area, so
Okay.
excited about it.
All right, and then looking ahead, okay, legislative advocacy should be on everyone's calendars. I think everyone has responded at least for a portion of the MSBA conference.
Yep.
So we can talk about that as it gets a little bit closer. Anything else anybody wants to discuss regarding the calendar? Okay, you should have had an initial draft of a couple of board policies. I apologize for stumbling over my policies. Nothing to be done on those tonight, just note that you have received them.
And if we have comments on that for clarification?
Me, Emerson, and Joe Dahl. Or of course Sandy or John or the administrator. Okay, John, opening of school.
Opening of school. And I wanted to say too that for the public, if you didn't see on Facebook or any other communications, we're using board docs, which is kind of something new for the opening of school. So that's why we're kind of feeling our way out with some of the technology and sharing screens and trying to sift through things. So instead of doing it just on our website or just via paper, we're kind of using this board doc system. So, I kind of created a presentation to share with you just a little bit about the opening of school. I'm going to go quickly. I won't tell you how many slides there are. But just want to highlight some things before school started, first day of school, and after school. So the first thing, we had a lot of different summer projects going on. We can't be more thankful for the Matt and Rob and their teams for the work that they did. Highlighting some of those, the new lights were installed at Clark. Huge thanks to their PTO for the fundraising, and for our facilities department was supporting them with some of the electrical work. That's the front hall, the main level at Avery. Avery had been carpeted in the main hallway. It was kind of dingy. It's got some new tile floor. It looks really nice. You saw the opening day at Webster Groves High School. The gym was redone this year. It looks super sharp. That is Steger. Steger to me has undergone a huge transformation. I think one of the more significant upgrades. They put that tile goes through most parts of that upper level, the Steger portion. The walls are white. The place looks so much brighter. I mean, it's amazing what that did for that particular facility. The kids love it. The staff loves it. Gene mentioned the auditorium is really coming together nicely. Those are some of the latest pictures. They recently got the floor down, and we will have different things going on in there later this week. And also the Selma press box, which is getting use. Many thanks to all the donors who made that happen. I got to watch one of the second halves of one of our soccer games. Hard-fought tie against Lindbergh from that press box. It provides a nice vantage point for those in there who are calling the game, radio broadcasting the game, and all the video cameras and such like that. Also before the school, just some PD and relationships. First, again, we had our new teacher orientation as we do every year. Many of you were there. We oriented 27 new teachers to the school district, which is a pretty big number. And so huge kudos to Chris and her team for that, and everybody that stepped in to help. That was a great experience. Our schools do a lot to try and welcome families to the school. So there's a Meet the Teacher events, but I wanted to specifically acknowledge Dr. Fields. He decided to create a handshakes and milkshakes event for Steger and Computer School. And I know that they had to go out for about 6 times the amount of ice cream that they started with because they had no idea how many people would come. And so it was a really huge draw. And Howard has done an amazing job at the school to start welcoming families. Down below is a picture that's kind of small, but it's Kristen Fagan and Melissa Murphy. Also there, Tom Havroka and Brian Keller. One thing that I think is really unique is that we're recognized, our teachers in our school districts are recognized for their level of expertise in the classroom. And these teachers in particular led staff development for the majority of all the Catholic schools in the area on project-based learning. And so they gave approximately about 2.5 hours of their time that day and all that happened before to plan to lead development for about 80 teachers. So just wanted to kind of lift them up for their efforts to do that. Again, like Emerson said, there's a lot of time that goes into getting school back, and I'm sure they had plenty to do in their classrooms, but they were there contributing to the learning of kids throughout our community, which I think is really pretty cool. Back to school barbecue, another big success. Again, many of you were there. There's Mr. Lohr working over the coals with John and the hot dogs. Great event, probably a little bit less turnout than in past years, possibly due to the start of soccer, some thought, but we still had about 240, 50 people based on what our counts were. Opening day event, again, kudos to Chris and her team for our opening day event, all the different strings and band programs that performed, the cheerleaders for greeting people outside when they came in. It's a neat way to start the year. First day of school, I love these. That's Will Ball, who's a teacher at Avery, and kind of taking a picture just like the children take. First day of school on the left. And the other one to the right is a boy by the name of Rob Hood, who's a senior at Webster Groves High School. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm welcoming people to school with donuts. I'm like, that is so nice. He bought the donuts by himself. He said his parents didn't buy it. So he stood there just greeting people on the first day of school. Not his friends, not his group, welcoming everybody. Just a really sweet gesture. Again, kind of made the way around, sat in some different lessons, got to all the schools. My team went to the bunch of schools. Saw a lot of neat things. Enrollment. So our official account, as board knows, for enrollment is the last Wednesday in September. But some of the preliminary numbers from the first day of school. So what I did is I transposed the slides from the enrollment report, the enrollment study that you saw, reminding you that these are resident enrollments for that particular attendance area. Okay, so this data doesn't include VIC, it doesn't include preschool, this particular slide. So of our resident students enrolled this year, we had 4,439, which was up from 4,362 last year. Our total enrollment, 4,762, is up about 75 students from last year. That's day one. Again, when you're looking at these projections, these trend lines, I think it's red, I am colorblind, that represents the mid-range projection, which Charles, when he was here, told us is probably the best line to look at because it accounts for the most years and kind of a better average. Of course, the line that's the highest is the high line. The star represents where we are for resident enrollments for this year. So you can see, based on his projections, we're above where we projected to be. We're still waiting to get the data from the department, one of the departments, state departments, so that we can kind of update those projections and bring them back to you. Just real quickly, here's Avery up 12, and I won't explain. You could look at the star, see where the lines are. Avery's up 12. Bristol is about right on the projections, down just slightly. Clark is below projections and below the line. Again, remember this is resident enrollment, so it doesn't account for kids. So if I'm a child and I live in the Clark attendance area, but I send my child to Hudson, I'm in the Clark data. Edgar Road, a little bit below the red line. Hudson, way above. Steger 6th grade center, above. And again, enrollment up 10 from last year. Hickson, above. Enrollment up from last year. And then again, Webster Groves High School is above the high line, seeing an increase. And again, they're going to get the big class next year of 8th graders, so that number will increase more. So here's kind of just the summary. The first day enrollment, we were up at seven of our schools, including the Walter Ambrose Family Center, which I didn't show you up there. The first day enrollment was the same at Clark. First day enrollment was down compared to last year at Bristol, just by 5 students, and computer school by 5 students. So we continue to go up a little bit. Some of the highlights from after school starting, the Selma press box, it was really neat. I was unable to go, but Kathy was able to capture kind of the inaugural game with the press box, and Tim did a really nice job of having all the kids like shake the hands of all the people that donated and thank them specifically, which was cool. One of the things that's going to take place, that hasn't taken place yet, that I wanted to highlight, the Anti-Defamation League does a lot of work with students and with school communities in terms of creating safe spaces. Myself, John Ramondo, and some others kind of looked at something we might possibly bring to Webster Groves High School, really with the focus on it. Something I've kind of had an interested in. So how do we develop people to be allies to people when they're getting picked on or when they're discriminated against or something like that? Instead of being a passive, quiet bystander, how do we help you to surround people, to stand up for people in a right way? And so what we are doing is we brought this particular group to the high school. They were in Clayton last year, and they just love them in Clayton. And we have a number of staff that are going to be trained in this, and then we have 25 students who will also undergo intense training, giving up weekend time to be a part of this particular program. PTO Umbrella Organization, Josh Brinkley is a dad at Clark, and he's really kind of taken the lead on revitalizing this organization. It's an organization that conceptually came to be to support PTOs with like filing taxes and stuff like that. Josh is looking to do that, we're looking to do that, but we're also looking to see how we can create a stronger network among our different PTOs. So maybe some common fundraisers, just common interest, how to create a better network, because our PTOs all do amazing work, but they all do them largely in isolation. So how can we come together more routinely and regularly to be mutually supportive? Partnership with St. Louis University. A lot of St. Louis County school districts around us, including us, are partnering with SLU to support educators coming from Saudi Arabia, which is a pretty neat program. It's a really intense program that these teachers and administrators go through, where they start with learning English, they start learning about America, and then they start getting into our schools. So they are touring, all the educators are touring all the school districts that are participating, and this is just some shots from our day last week. Kudos to Avery and high school, to the students who led them around, as well as the staff. New principals are doing just absolutely phenomenal. I continue to get rave reviews about all three of them and their efforts. I think we hired some really great people. Obviously, they like one another. They take selfies everywhere together as the newbies. Pretty funny. Buses and cabs and adventure club. We had a few little glitches with buses and cabs early on, but we resolved them very quickly. Huge kudos to John and Bruce for their efforts on that. Again, kudos to Sandy on the support of the Adventure Club. Again, it's a very tough group to staff because of the hours and because of the nature of some of the work. And so we get ready for school and we lose like 6 or 7 people. Rolanda knows how this goes as a leader of one. But we did a great job of, again, not having to put any of our students on the waiting list. So they're stretched right now, they're bulging right now, but again, we're working to hire people. Again, the Eclipse special experience was touched on. I started this year with the students who were not Joe or Trinity, chosen for this role, a student leadership cabinet with the other students, and they were all really interested in it. We met this particular week just to get to know one another a little better and talk about possibilities for the upcoming year. I asked them what they wanted, when they wanted to meet, and they said as frequently as possible. So we're meeting in 2 weeks. They have a lot of ideas, and they'll also kind of serve as a think tank to me of student voice. We mentioned this great event, Visions of America, thanks to Pat Voss and to her efforts with this.
How do we get tickets?
I can get you some if you just want to tell me you're interested. They're $10 in advance.
Okay.
If you'd let me know, I'll walk over and get them for you.
I should probably get him at the open house.
I know my back, so I can probably manage to walk there.
That's true. Should be really neat. Narrated by Clint Eastwood and William Shatner. I'm like, wow, how did our alumni get Clint Eastwood in them? And she's like, well, he's his next door neighbor, actually. So it kind of helps. So pretty neat that it's alumni. It should be pretty neat. Anything else with that? Okay. That's it.
All right,
Any questions from board or anything?
All right, thank you, John. You are up still,
Yep.
Analyzing Understanding Systemic Racism workshop.
So what I wanted to just share with you, Emerson, I had shared my experience with Emerson and Amy and had the idea to bring it to the group and on their encouragement. But I participated in a training this year provided by Crossroads, not the local school, but it's a kind of anti-racist, anti-bias organization out of Chicago that does a lot of great work. And it was a really neat experience. It was myself, Joe Hayes from Clark, 4 teachers from there, and we kind of went into the experience with, there were bankers there were nonprofit people there was the college school was actually there, and the focus was on having how do you understand systemic racism, and it's really anti-racism and anti-bias, and then how do you deal with that within your organization. And it was an absolutely amazing training, something different than I've experienced a lot of. I've been in a lot of social justice, equity type workshops, kind of like the one that we do for our district, and a lot of it's on personal development, but it's not as much as really understanding the historical root and consequential implications of systemic discrimination. And it really did a great job. These were the particular objectives of the workshop. So exploring the historical development in the U.S. and how it impacts today, analyzing what systemic racism is, how it operates institutionally, culturally, and shapes identity. Begin internalizing a shared language for talking about it, how it operates in society within the organization, and then begin equipping institution with a framework for examining cultures and values and moving toward an anti-racist, anti-bias transformation. There are a number of people in our district that are interested in going. I know that from what I've heard from people that are part of the organization, that there are board members that are interested in this work. And if there's anything that I can encourage to go to one of these trainings, there's a lot of them available. At some point, if we want to consider, bringing the group here, I don't think that would be a bad idea either. So.
Is this the same one Dr. Washington attended?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that one of the teachers at Clark pulled me aside. I was there for some other reason, and she said, Amy, I attended this workshop, and I would really, really, really like you to talk to the board and consider attending. She was really impressed, and she's a smart lady and has been involved in similar types of activities, and this one really impressed her.
How long did it last?
This was long. It was 2.5 days. So they had organized about 8 different 2.5-day sessions. There's one in October, one in November. Those are both kind of Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The one we attended was in the summer during the week. So they offer different type trainings. If we had them here, we could certainly say this is what we want. But it was really good, and I've studied this for a long time, but it took on new meaning, new understanding. It was really
I mean, is it something that if we sort of gave up, could you do something meaningful in sort of 3 to 4 hours? And so here's my thought. Is that something where we could give over one of the board meetings one evening, go and do that? We could go and do it perhaps at the service centre, and that way if members of the public wanted to come and listen as well, perhaps we could do that, if that is long enough to do something that is meaningful. I wouldn't want to do it just so that
We said we did.
I'm not interested in doing that. But if they think there's something, it sounds like a very, very rich program, so I'm not sure whether that's necessarily going to be enough time, but perhaps something just to think about.
Yeah, no, I think any time would be better than not. I think,
I don't have, to be
Yeah.
honest, I don't have 2.5 days that I can,
I know, it's a
I
lot.
can give up this, unfortunately,
I get
but I'm
it.
certainly interested in learning more.
I get it.
John? I think this is a great idea, and if we can get, 1 day or half-day sessions, there might be more people interested.
Yeah.
But also the Alliance for Interracial Dignity on September 14th is having Dr. Terry Jones speak on a topic that sounds very similar. It's more about the history about racism in the St. Louis area. And so I would encourage people to look into that as well, because that is just an evening session, and it should have some good local community discussion.
Thank you.
Is everybody on the Alliance's mailing list, email list?
If you have any other links or anything that we can kind of take a look at or get on like an email list or something like that, this would probably also be something good to encourage the communities that we represent, just to offer that's out there, so they're aware of what we're doing also. I think that would be a beneficial thing for those communities also. We could do that through our liaisons.
Well, and I would say if we can't all commit to 3 days, if any of us could do it, that would be great. It would be a start, and maybe next year we could add.
Right.
Yeah.
Particularly if we get some new board members.
Yeah. They did a really good job of, it went deep, but it made it really practical too. Like it really, which I liked it. Okay.
So can you continue to make
Yeah.
us aware
Yeah,
of those
absolutely.
opportunities? And make sure, okay, let's
Absolutely.
keep that on the radar, please.
Absolutely.
Okay, 2017-18 draft board goals.
So wanted to share with you, and Tim, you could turn back on there, whoever had the lights before. With the board goals, just really a draft for your review, was to look at those. So what I did was I took the 5 headers, topics, containers, whatever, that you thought we should focus on, or the goal areas. And then I looked at kind of our strategic plan, I looked at our communication plan that we just developed, and I looked at the superintendent's goals and tried to tie some of it together. and this is what was created. I ended up taking my draft to administrators. It got revised a little bit further. And so I came up with these for 4 particular headers, the descriptions underneath, and then some of the strategies that followed, some of the broad strategies underneath. Some, they're already in the works. As I looked at past board goals, there's a lot here. So some are in the works. So when we look at the operational goals, those are things that are, we're already doing this comprehensive facilities plan. We're focusing on energy usage this year, and then seeking the internal and external sources of revenue. The stakeholder engagement, we took some of the communication goals there. The different ones are focusing on the learning, connecting, and talent development. So again, one of the things that we need to do this year is we need to develop our strategic plan for the minimum of the next 3 years. What I would like to do, and it's really the timing of this particular workshop was critical, was to do that in conjunction with an analysis of the systems that make up our institution. So as we focus on strategic goals and what we want to do, what are the different systems in our institution, such as our hiring practice, such as extracurricular activities, such as transportation, all these different things. And then look at those through a lens of equity, and then develop outcomes and strategies for moving in that direction. I don't know if that makes sense. It's a little bit different than the traditional way of doing strategic planning. But what these are is kind of a jump start on some of this work. So one of the things that we've noticed and talked about a lot in our equity and ed group, we've talked about it administratively, is the equity of access to different curricular programs and classes for students. So we've made a tremendous amount of gains in recent history. So we went from like 3.5% of our students of color in advanced classes, weighted classes at Webster Groves High School, to 35% of them. It's a big jump in 7 or 8 years, but we know it's still not enough. We know that there's still disparities with gifted education, despite our efforts to redo some of the criteria to support students of color getting into those. So one of our goals this year under the Learning Connecting is to really look at examining our equity of access to these programs and how can we remove barriers and get a representative group at the minimum of our children of color in advanced classes. So another example would be when you look at different courses at the high school, are the criteria, eligibility criteria to be in the class, are there things there that shouldn't be there? They shouldn't be barriers.
Restrictions.
Restricted, right? So that's that particular goal. Another one is in partnership with schools, developing a closer look at data from our particular level. Again, that was a goal that I inserted during the superintendent's goals. Again, looking at data, looking at a wide range of academic data, but then also looking at participation data. So that could, for example, could be as just monitoring our children in after school activities, clubs. What are our kids that go to math enrichment? That kind of falls in the other category too. But we've already started creating and collaborating on a master list and a process for how we go about analyzing some of this stuff. Again, it's big in itself. It's something that's new, but I think it will be beneficial. And again, felt compelled to also, to support the work in alignment with our vision. Talent development, to begin, we've always had a commitment to trying and recruiting and hiring and retaining staff of color, but to have a really specific plan and be creative with our efforts. This has generated a tremendous amount of excitement among administrators for I want to be a part of the group that looks at this. So developing a plan and trying to look to initiate that as soon as we possibly can. Finalizing the administrator evaluation we started last year, and then assessing our teacher PBTE. We're about 4 or 5 years in our teacher PBTE. One of the things that was a conflict with it when we went through it was its alignment with kind of our vision and not being able to embed our own language into the actual tool because it's a product, because it's a Marzano product. And so as recently came up in a conversation with somebody, I recognized one of our administrators, recognizing somebody doing something really good as it relates to equity and justice, And they went through the whole thing and like, where is it, where is it, where is it? And it's not there. And the place where it is implied, it doesn't necessarily speak to it. And so really wanting to look at our tool to determine, you know, does it align with what we want to do? And because we have to be in sync all throughout the organization. So a pretty good assessment of that this year. So not changing to something the following year, but is this something that really is going to be supportive of our efforts or not? The plan is then, with what I listed here, was to bring the Board of Education updates, allow you to contribute to the process, just to keep the conversation and the work in front of you, the dates below. So we may not maybe get to one aspect of it, but at those tentative dates, we would bring you updates on progress on each of these particular items.
I do like that idea that you've got sort of some defined periods where you're going to report back on what you're doing on these various things. I think that's, you know, frankly, that's going to be the key to it being successful, is that, you know, you do regularly give us updates as well. So thank you. I like the approach.
Yeah.
I think you did a great job putting together all of our ideas, because it was kind of all over the place. Now it seems much more defined. But this is a draft. Are we looking to approve it tonight?
It's not, I don't know if it, I guess, do your board goals require approval? I don't know. Any thoughts? It is draft for your thoughts.
And then one question is, you seem to have two categories, each of the board meetings you have listed, and something like learning and conducting, I can see that taking hours all by itself to give a thorough update. So just wondering, is it appropriate to put a time limit on these updates, or to say maybe we want one meeting to focus on just one category?
Yeah.
I don't know how you're.
We could always
Let's give it a try, see how it works. And if
I like keeping on top of these things, because that's why we're here. That's why the school district exists. I think it's a very succinct plan and some goals for us this year. I would add a thought on, under the learning and connecting, under number 2, and appreciate that one about improving outcomes and engagement of students of color. I would ask my colleagues to consider not only monitoring the student learning and participation, but development of strategies. Because if you identify something and you see things happening, you want to intervene as quickly as possible and not wait. I think it would be, you know, we've seen things happen. We know that there are patterns and discrepancies between in this area, but once we see them, we need to try to solve them as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah. That could definitely be included.
Other comments or feedback?
One other thing is, I appreciate this comprehensive facilities plan. I think it's
I'm excited about
been
that.
needed and will really give us some direction on our facilities.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And as your reward, now you get to talk about something else.
Yeah, so-
Revisions to the radio lease agreement.
Yeah, we're just some, nothing too major to the radio lease agreement. So we approved it last time. And then when we went back to the group for their signature, they had some additional things that they wanted to bring towards us. It took a little while to get to, but ultimately, Bruce and I sat down and met twice with Ellie and Ed, and then they've kind of run it through their board. So what I can do, what I'm going to do here is just really highlight really quickly some of the changes, again, which we're fine with. Doug has already reviewed this, so just know that. On page 2, one of the things was, it's really just promising that we'll take care of the tower reasonably, and the tenant promises to take care of their equipment also. Some language there for that. On 4, on page 3, we added something that said, the biggest part of that if we're not here and we need staff to open the building, that the radio station would compensate our staff. If it wasn't me or if it wasn't an administrator, we'd have a custodian come in. They were fine with that. The next one, broadcast programming. We took out the part that had us having the the right or the final decision maker on programming for a variety of reasons, but we also left it where we will get an update of the radio's programming at least a week in advance, and then if we have an objection to anything, then we would come together to talk about it, which seemed reasonable. Something was added back into the original. We added something about interference. The radio station, I shouldn't say they didn't want us to, but they had wanted to add language in there that didn't allow us to shut it down if it caused like a lot of problems to our communication or anything like that. But we thought it was critical that if it was more than reasonably interfering, or if it was affecting our children's learning, if it was affecting our communication, we had to maintain the authority to shut it down. So we weren't going to just say, shut it down no matter what the problem was. Well, if there's a problem, we'll try to work through it as much as we can, but if it's unreasonable, we got to shut the thing down. And they were totally cool with that as well. Some things got added back in from what they were proposing as changes. Nothing really big. The one thing that they wanted to add to, and then we said no, is that they wanted to, if we ever transferred our high school into anybody else, that the kind of the obligation liabilities assumed by us would transfer to the new person. And so, while they were pretty comfortable that Webster Groves High School would remain.
I get away with that stuff.
Yeah, so anyway, they were fine. We're like, well, no, we don't want to, we're not going to agree to that, and what are the chances? So that's it. So what we're looking for you tonight is to approve this. They've approved it, their board's approved it.
Just one question, probably actually Amy's better position to answer it. I'm presuming in terms of if we've only oversight of programming, there are no separation issues there?
That
Church and state?
issue was looked into, I believe, by Deb before we approved it the first time.
Okay.
So yeah, so that he was comfortable that we're okay.
Okay, good.
I will defer to him on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would make a motion that we approve the revised agreement with the radio station.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great, thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, one more, John. Transfer student update.
The next John.
Oh, another John, all right.
Yeah, Johns are wild.
I don't like this agenda. Because I
Yeah.
can't see and there's no calendar on it. Sorry.
All right.
Good evening. Just wanted to give you a brief update on where we're at with our students who attend our schools as part of a transfer program. We continue our long relationship with students transferring to our schools from the city of St. Louis as part of the voluntary transfer program. Last fall, the VIC Executive Board did approve another 5-year extension, so the program will continue through the school year 2023-24. So students who are enrolled through that time will be able to continue through the time that they graduate. So we're excited about that. We did add 5 new students this year, as we had spoke about last year, 3 kindergarten students and 2 freshmen at the high school. And our current number is 115 students who participate in the VIC program. And then also with students, our families who reside in unaccredited school districts still have the choice to enroll in accredited schools. So we still have students attending our schools from Normandy primarily, and also Riverview as part of the transition of them becoming accredited. So we have 12 students total attending, 3 from Riverview and 9 from Normandy. And this summer, just like we've done the past few summers, we gave Education Plus a chart of where we have openings in our schools, and they matched that with the Normandy parents, the Normandy families who wanted to have their children attend schools. And on that application process, they could prioritize which school districts they wanted their children to attend. So we welcomed 4 new students from Normandy in our schools this year, and it works out that they're all from one family, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And that's all I have on that, unless you guys have some questions. Yes, sir.
Can you just remind us what we'll be collecting from the VIC program and then from the 2 unaccredited schools for the next school year, please?
Sure, $7,000 per student.
Okay, and so it's consistent across all of them?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
John, is the VIC program winding down? I mean, with interest from the city parents coming out to the county?
No, there's more demand for seats than there are seats available by quite a bit. So we're probably one of the school districts that accepts the fewest number at 5. There are some other districts that accept more. However, there's a lot more families wanting to have their children attend participating schools than there are seats available.
Yeah, I know what our goal was to let that wind down, but now I think we're in a different position that we can open up our hearts to let more of those VIC students back in.
That was the thing that changed last year, though, what they, because I had told David Glosser that we would be interested in entertaining if we had more interested, but what they did is they looked at your average enrollment over like the 3 preceding years, and they fixed your number. And so that was part of their strategy to wind down too.
Right.
And so some of the schools that had a bunch still had a bunch, and because we had just kind of.
But that was prior to the 5-year reapproval, right?
Well, they took the 3 years prior to the 5-year, but they capped us at the number that we're at right now.
Okay.
And so we could express an interest in if there was space available, but it was only space based on their allotment. So they're the ones that are putting the block up to the families that want to come, not us.
I was going to say, I thought that was my understanding, was that Vic only had so much
Yes.
money, and so that was the limit on students that went through the program. Was not us saying we won't take
Right.
any more than 5, but it was that they've only got X
Yeah,
number
for
of
them-
students they have money to go and fund.
Correct, for them to sustain the program through 23, 24, and then the 12 years beyond that, they've got it all plotted out that they can fund it through that duration of time.
And am I right in thinking that 7,000 is actually a decrease in what we've collected in the past?
Yes, it is. Used to, my recollection is at one point in time it was 7,500.
That was what I thought. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we now have our second opportunity for public comments. All right, seeing none. Quick aside, I didn't catch this earlier, but I actually am related to someone on the personnel report. Everybody, please make sure you check that every single time. It's a serious ethics violation to vote to employ or increase the salary of somebody that you're related to. So I am going to abstain from the entire consent agenda. That said, Arnold, did you take a look at it? You're the only one. Okay, you're good? Okay.
Sorry.
I have one question
You're trying to get
related
rid of
to
me,
that.
aren't you?
I'm not
You're trying to get rid of me. What?
In the personnel report, Hickson, what is Young Ladies of Excellence?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's an after-school club just for young ladies to talk through personal things, also to help them with strategies for how to be able to run empowering.
Okay.
Is
Great.
it new?
It is new. This is year 2.
Okay.
And year 8.
Yes, it was the only one that I didn't recognize. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. Have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I would recommend that we approve consent agenda items B, C, D, E, F, G, and H as listed on our agenda.
Thank you.
I will second, and can we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure.
Jackson?
Yes.
Dahl? Yes. Dugan?
Yes.
Hernan?
Abstained?
Smith?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I don't believe we need another executive session, so at this point, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks, guys.